the writer and creator of the Mastery Club books and programs, and I'm here with Edwina Ricci, who is a psychology teacher and community partnerships officer at Melba College in Croydon, Victoria, Australia. Edwina is also driving significant changes in the school and in the city of Maroondah and even in the entire Pacific region. We're going to hear more about that soon. But right now, we're at Melba College to talk about the recent Mastery Club program that was run here. And as you can see, we're sitting in front of an absolutely gorgeous piece of colourful artwork. Edwina, just tell us about this before we start.
Alright, so teaching psychology, we learn about neuroplasticity.
Yep.
So it's a very important concept for students to comprehend when it comes to their own learning, is that learning happens via the growth of neurons. So we create our own using having the axon, the cell body and the dendrites. They all make their own and make a network of this to represent our learning. So that I can constantly come back to this about the effort that they put in is about the making of these neurons within their brains, that everyone is capable of it, not just some, not just those that they think are smart, that it all comes with effort. And when they see this, they get a growth mindset. And so it's actually the key that unlocks motivation, and also with students that may have perhaps a negative view of their own learning or their capability for learning. This helps, and having a visual representation. And it is gorgeous, isn't it?
Absolutely
with a few
gorgeous.
Sparkles. So
love the colour of the sparkle, which of course is very good for the brain, because the brain loves that colour, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
So this, I really like this. I'm inspired to make one too now. So the first thing I'd like to ask you is, how did you come across the book, and what were your first impressions of the book before we talk about the program?
Okay, look, for me it was looking at my students, looking for something for my students with a lot of ability, who perhaps at that stage at Year 9 that weren't as engaged and challenged as they could be. I did a test to assess their grit, which is their perseverance to long-term goals, and found that the baseline for that was pretty low in these very clever students. So I thought, what can we do about that? Came across the Mastery Club, which for me is about goal setting, a very important aspect to anyone's life, students as well, and thought, wow, wouldn't it be great if we could run this Mastery Club with these students who have lots of goals and aspirations, but being able to fine-tune that a little bit. So that was really why. And then, of course, we ran our wonderful program for 10 weeks. So, yeah, it was terrific.
Oh, good. Well, I want to ask you to share a little bit about that from your perspective, because you stayed in on most of the sessions, didn't you? You were pretty much there all the way through. So what were some of the benefits that you saw as the program unfolded?
Well, I'll talk quickly about the selection process for the students.
Okay,
so there was an opportunity for all Year 9 students to accelerate their maths in Year 9. So rather than sit and wait for the teacher to come up with a particular topic for that day or that week, they were given the challenge to take control of their own learning, being given autonomy over that, which topics they were going to do, when they were going to do their tests, how much of the topic, looking at what they had to learn from an ASVEL, so that's the criteria for all students, what they have to learn up to Year 10. They looked at that, worked out within their text what they needed to learn, and that was a negotiated thing. As a group, they decided. So when that was put before all Year 9, I had 13 students put up their hand and say, I'd really like to do that. So what they were saying to me is, I really want to do well in my maths, but there's something I want to take control of my education. So that was the selection criteria, and anyone who put up their hand for that program, they came in at the beginning of term 1. No, sorry, it was the school holidays of term 1 last year, and they came for a 3-hour session that was to look at some positive psychology elements, this grit, and also begin the work on Mastery Club. And these 13 students gave up 3 hours of their holidays to do that. So for me, it's about their give and their commitment. And that's how I guess, for me, the selection process for this particular program. So what I was hoping to achieve was that students were going to be able to set some goals and work towards them. And that certainly happened. They did. They really enjoyed the community that developed between those 13 students. They didn't necessarily all know one another, but they became a little family, and they look forward to their sessions every week. They got a lot out of it, I know they did, and the benefits for that, they moved from the junior campus up here to the senior campus, and I think it's put them in good stead for the senior expectations, where you do have to be more, I think, in control of your learning, and you can't just wait for the teacher to give you everything. You've got to get out there and try and do that for yourself, and they have the confidence to do that. The Mastery Club gave them what it is to have a goal, what it is to work towards a goal, and how awesome it is to be able to achieve that goal. And I think having felt that, being nurtured in that experience, has given them the confidence to be able to make further goals.
Excellent. Thank you. It's very good to hear that, and especially after, you know, a period of time, because that was a few months ago we ran the program. So it's good to hear your congruence about the value of the program now, sometime later, that it's still sticking with you like that. I'm very pleased. In fact, you know, when we first met, you'd said to me, just having read the book, I would love to make Melba College a Mastery Club school where every student reads the book and every student does the program. And really, you know, you gave me that as a goal. You know, I was thinking, that sounds awesome. And what I'd really love is to have schools that when they discover that a student's been through the Mastery Club program, that school is more interested in that, or that university is more interested in having that student because of the name that we're going to build here. So that's great. So you're very committed to Martin Seligman's positive psychology model, and that's a model that you're wanting to really saturate the school with, and beyond that into the City of Maroon and into the Pacific region. Before we go to those bigger contexts, how do you see the Mastery Club program fitting in with positive psychology?
Well, positive psychology is about the preventative elements of mental health. So if we imagine a continuum from +10 to -10, positive psychology isn't about the rescue, how we get from -10 to 0. It's about how we get from 0 to +10. So it's about people understanding that have to work really hard at their mental health, that you have to invest in your mental health like it's an ATM that you would put money in case you need it for later on. You have to invest. When the negative things that happen in our lives, the challenges, the things that come out of left field that we are not in control of, if we don't have reserves in that bank, then we fall into this negative, and we may even end up down that -10, depression, and these things that are very prevalent in our society, whether that's with young people or older people. There are huge statistics on students who are suffering from depression and anxiety. So we have to address that. We have to equip them with the tools to build resilience, and that's why I love positive psychology. It has elements in building positive emotion, positive relationships, engagement with your passion, have a meaning and purpose. So think about not just yourself, think about others. Give, give, give. I can't stress that enough, to be giving back. And accomplishment. And for me, that accomplishment is about goal setting. It's about setting things that I know I can achieve, but purposely working towards those. That's where the Mastery Club comes in. I think, yes, it sits within goal setting, it sits within accomplishment, but I think it embraces everything that we're trying to do within positive psychology, is teach people how to respond to other people's good news. Don't take the wind out of their sails, celebrate with them. Don't, encourage other people. Show gratitude. Be thankful for what you've got. Don't always wish that I'm in the paddock next door that's greener than mine, but be grateful and show that gratitude, because not only does the person that you show gratitude to benefit, but you benefit so much. The residual emotion, they say 6 months. Just because you've written a gratitude letter to somebody, which is just amazing. Every day, what went well today? We should all be sitting at our staff meetings saying, well, what went well, before we plough into what's wrong. I think around a dinner table, we should be encouraged, parents and students alike, what went well today? Not did Johnny give something negative to you today, or did you get to play with those kids today? More, what did happen that was great today? Because if we dwell on those positive things, the positive emotion spirals us upwards.
Yep.
And there's so much scientific evidence behind it, we can't ignore it.
You know, the brain, right?
Yeah.
Like the sessions, the first session we do in the Mastery Club program is about that reticular activating system in the brain and how it goes looking for proof and evidence and more of the same.
Yeah.
And if you directionalise it with that question, what worked today, what went well, then you'll find more of that. You know?
And I think in the program, as I sat through every lesson, I saw elements of positive psychology come in. I had a good friend of mine, Justin Robinson from Geelong Grammar, is coming to do some work with us in Maroondah, and he said it's not the McDonald's variety of education where it's one size fits all. It's like the Michelin hat. You take the principles, you embed them in your own life, and then you apply them to your own work context, and that's the same. We have to, within our schools, bring this to the culture of the school. And I guess that's what I think about the Mastery Club. I think it's can change the culture of a place. So it's not about just a 10-week course, it's not just a curriculum, it's a way of being. And I think that's quite distinctive from just more information. In an educational context, we are bombarded with this program and that program and this lesson. It's more, how do I do life differently? And I think the Mastery Club provides some answers for that.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm inspired now. So, speaking of inspiration, you are amazing, Edwina. Like, not only does this woman have a full teaching load, but she's the community partnerships person at the school, right? So she's constantly working in a business context as well. Plus, president of the Croydon Chamber of Commerce and spearheading the city of Maroondah to be a city of wellbeing, which I'd like you to talk about now.
Yeah.
And similarly, out in the Pacific region, making changes out there. I'm just, come on, I'll take my hat off to you. Share a little bit of what your bigger visions are, what you're doing.
You know, I do have a passion for this. I guess the big driver for me is, you know, I have my own faith. So I believe that we should be, I guess, giving. So we should be able to use our skills and talents for the benefits of others. When I looked at the situation of the school, the community at large, and the wider community, I've been lucky enough to work in the Pacific in a previous job, but I saw that the issues were the same, that the unhappiness that was out there was that people didn't have a purpose. Number one thing, not having a purpose beyond themselves. If we think very inwardly, then I don't think we're going to get the life satisfaction that we're all striving for. I think there is a bigger purpose. And I think for me, I guess having a faith and a spirituality, that's certainly helped me with my meaning and purpose, and certainly given me the capacity to be able to give. So I thought, wow, how can we bring well-being, not just to a small little microcosm here, which, you know, with Melba College, 650 students. How can we actually do this as a bigger picture thing? And this is where Seligman comes in. He worked in South Australia as a thinker in residence. I think it would have been a wonderful, I like that, I love that whole, yes, I think that would be my ideal dream job. But very seriously, his book Flourish, he took that and in South Australia came up with a model for South Australia to become the state of wellbeing. And a document was written, and I thought, wow, wouldn't it be great if Maroondah became the city of wellbeing? So I began some discussions with my hat with the Chamber of Commerce, with the council, who after doing a 2040 vision for Maroondah, and I was lucky enough to be part of that process, that well-being was really the top of the charts in terms of what everybody wanted, whether it was to do with infrastructure, health, education, whatever it was, well-being seemed to pop up. So I thought, okay, you know, the last day they said, put your sticky note on where you think you can, you know, because they were asking people to take action, not just come, write some document and then everyone goes back into their cave again. They said, what would you like to drive? And I thought, okay, challenge, well-being. Okay, sticky note, onto the thing, I will help drive the well-being. So rallied round the chamber, got some support from the other executive members of Chamber who said, yep, we're up for this. We wanted to have something, a voice that was relevant to all business, but actually be able to penetrate the community a little bit more too, not just be focused, again, giving beyond the boundaries of our normal context. So working with council, we've got to the point where Maroondah has said, yes, we want to be the city of wellbeing, and we have 3 projects. One in schools, so when I talk about that continuum of -10 to +10, we want the schools to be +10. We want students to be +10, teachers to be +10. So we're working towards how do we do that. So we've engaged Geelong Grammar, who are the global experts in positive education. Martin Seligman lived with them for 6 months, and they have travelled the journey again to create their Michelin hat, and they are going to come in and support. But what we've been lucky enough to get the youth school-focused area, the youth area council engaged. They've had some funding, and our first step is to engage with Melbourne Uni, who have developed a wellbeing profile tool, and we're going to gather some baseline data because we need to measure. So the idea is to measure and build wellbeing. So we have a project in schools, a project in sport. So we've developed a positive sports coaching program, and that was through the generous donation from the Oceania Australia Foundation. And a gentleman by the name of Matthew Scholes, he's done some scientific work in this space, and he has put his key knowledge around positive psychology in sport, being able to, those conversations that you have with children on the sidelines, we shouldn't be yelling at them because their brains shut down. We need to understand what happens when the amygdala response, and again, something that comes up in the Mastery Club, that the amygdala is a really important part of our brain, and if we have it unsettled, then we're not listening. And so if coaches think that they can yell at their players and get a good outcome on the field, they're wrong. And this is what this positive sports coaching does, and that's free. So through the sport area of council, we're delivering that. And another program called SALT, Sport and Life Training, are going into football clubs, looking at alcohol and drugs and looking at creating values pledges for football clubs and young men within football clubs to do things differently, actually challenging behaviours, so that we're looking at the positive elements to that. We're engaging with leaders within football clubs so that they see themselves as role models. So we have sport, we have schools, and then we're looking at a business model as well, looking at how businesses can be mentally healthy workspaces. We've got Beyond Blue coming to a chamber meeting tonight, actually,
I'll be there.
to speak about mentally healthy. So Ray Bonney from Beyond Blue is coming to speak about mentally healthy workspaces. So you can see that one conversation about, and we're not in the rescue space because there is a lot of programs in that space. We want to be in the preventive. We want to put that fence at the top of the cliff to stop people falling in. We're sort of not the pull them out of the river. That's and exactly. So for me, I want to stop the statistics that we've got on anxiety and depression. I want to be putting some things in place right across this community to look at where people are at and get them working to push themselves up that continuum. But I also want to make sure that for those that are up there, they stay there too, that we are thinking about our own resilience, that we don't know what life's going to throw at us, and we have to be prepared. We have to be making sure that we care for ourselves so that we can care for those that are around us. And it needs to be explicitly taught, and not just in schools. Schools are places that need to radiate this. So we need to have a dedicated and one conversation across many schools, not just, because I think often, and this is what I'm trying, I guess, to do in the role as the chamber president, but being in a school, is collaboration. That's the future. None of us have an answer, but collectively we do. And I think when we work together, and this is what I've loved about this process of City of Wellbeing, is being able to listen to other people that have something to add. So it's like this massive jigsaw puzzle, and it's almost like this, where everybody has a role. But together when we fight, things that wire together, fire together.
Yep.
So if we're all wired together, we will fire together, and this community well-being. And then when I come back to the Pacific, I say these small communities, a bit like Maroondah, we're 109,000 residents. But the Pacific nations, some of them, the countries are that size. So, you know, countries, I mean, Fiji's bigger, Samoa's about twice that size, but you've got some little smaller countries in the Pacific. I think if we can create a great working model here, where in every country there's a Chamber of Commerce, there's a Rotary Club, there's schools, there's councils, we can put these pieces together and not tell them what to do, but give them a model to try and raise their well-being. Because I think if we can raise the well-being of these places, they will come up with the solutions to their own issues. They'll create their own Michelin hat. And I think in developing nations, this is a key. It's about building on people's strengths. And that's really what we're talking about in terms of positive psychology. People understanding their strengths, working with those strengths and their passions to create the best possible version of themselves. And if we're all operating as the best possible version of ourselves, then society's going to benefit. We're going to benefit personally, and anyone we come in contact will as well.
Absolutely. And so one of the key words used was culture, you know, creating that culture where people do value themselves and want to create the things that enliven them. Because one of my questions is, wouldn't it be great if a sound education was measured not so much by grades, but by aliveness and the ability to realise your goals and dreams? Because that's kind
really
of like,
difficult. Well, actually, it's interesting. I went to a workshop last week, the future of learning, and looking at different pedagogies. So it's a shocking word, but the way we teach, looking at an instructional model, is that the way to go? Do we have to all teach the same way? Well, I think there's a lot of us teaching the same way at the moment. What was said at this was there are two things about the future of learning. We have to understand progression, and that is we've got to understand where students are at so that we're meeting every student where they're at and moving them forward and being conscious about that. But students need to become designers of their own learning. So designing your own learning means that I've got to speak up, I've got to have confidence to do that, I've got to know what I want to learn too. I can't just sit there and wait passively, because I'm not sure the future is about that. It's going to be about just-in-time learning, not just in case. As teachers, we have to be equipped with that. It's our confidence, and we have to be ready to equip students with these skills to design their own learning. And we, as teachers, have to design our own learning too. So.
Edwina, thank you.
My pleasure.
Thank you for your time, and I'm really glad that you've been able to use the Master Club as a tool at Melba College. I'm keen to work with you more to really create that culture right through the school. And so if you are interested in a visionary, progressive, holistically minded teacher like Edwina, or going to a school that has teachers like Edwina, then consider Melba College.
I've got one thing I'd like to add, if that's okay, is that I see a real purpose for this product in those transition years between grade 6 and year 7, is what a great thing to link a child who could potentially be coming to our school. So that's possibly an area that we will explore, is this transition, as we transition into a brand new school, which we're very excited about, looking at engaging perhaps some of our feeder primary schools to work with us in building this culture and them understanding what the culture of Melba is. So, and I think it's great timing too for those students, and of course the age appropriateness of the students in the book is about the same age. So I think
that's right. It's perfect. I had a meeting yesterday with one of your feeder schools with at the staff meeting. I did a presentation, so here's to that. All right, thank you so much for your time, Edwina.
No worries.